So recently, Candace Owens interviewed one of the few living survivors of the USS Liberty attack. His name was Phil Turney. It is actually a very fascinating and illuminating interview that premiered on December 11th, 2024. I think at this point it might have 4 million views or more than 4 million views, so it's very fascinating and I urge you to check it out. But here's the problem when we think about Candace. She deliberately cherry picks specific details from certain incidents while also from entire isolated incidents, and she does this expressively to demonize Israel and ultimately the Jews. It does this by reinforcing certain stereotypes that have become very dangerous and prevalent against the Jews recently. And that's why Candace repeatedly mentions Israel's real and alleged bad actions, specifically Israel's attack on the U.S.S. Liberty during the Six-Day War in 1967. So terrible mistakes happen in every war. We obviously know that. Like even a few months ago, right? Israeli troops mistakenly killed 3 of their own hostages in Gaza, for example. And for a long time, me and others thought the Israeli attack on the Liberty may have been one. But I am persuaded that the strike on the Liberty was potentially and probably deliberate for reasons I do not understand and may never understand, and I wish I did. But both the American and Israeli governments covered it up at the time and have never since explained why it happened. If everything said about the attack on the Liberty is true, that attack seems to me have been criminal. So it's not wrong to bring that up, but it is wrong to isolate it and not create a moral perspective around it. My point being is Candace Owens is bringing back the USS Liberty incident in which, we talked about it, Israel killed 34 U.S. sailors 57 years ago, but also at the same time sort of running defense for Hezbollah, which deliberately killed 241 U.S. Marines 43 years ago, right? Cherry picking to expressly demonize Israel as the ultimate bad guy in every situation all the time, reinforcing these dangerous stereotypes that have become more prevalent against Jews. And so we can also talk about the Levion affair, right? Another shameful stain on Israeli espionage, exposed the failures of the Susanna operation. This 1954 operation led to internal investigations, condemnations, and significant shifts in Israeli policy. The operation also took place during a period of mass expulsion of 850,000 Jews from Arab countries, when the Mossad was engaged in several operations to exfiltrate many of them. You can see Operation Magic Carpet, Operation Ezra, and Ne'emah, right? But most people, including Candace, conveniently omit these important facts about the moral perspective, much like she omits Israel's reparations of over 60 million in today's dollars to the victims of the USS Liberty. More troubling, though, is people's refusal to address a century of relentless attacks against Israel by Arab states and actors bent on its destruction. While this doesn't, of course, excuse every error or act of corruption, it does again provide necessary context, which is important when looking at things with an open moral perspective. If she were honest, she would read real books that treat the complexity of surviving in the Arabic nest of vipers with balance and nuance. She could try Benny Morris's Righteous Victims and Ronan Bergman's Rise and Kill First, neither of which, by the way, let Israel off the hook easily, but important books to read. Also, if you want a real context around all of Candace's arguments and someone who really can debunk them, is Dennis Prager. He wrote a 15-page letter addressing all of Candace's claims about Jews, Zionism, and Israel. And none of them hold up to true facts, logic, and historical evidence. Dennis Prager also challenged Candace to use her platform to defend Christians. Candace is a Christian. To defend Christians being slaughtered en masse in the Islamic world. In Israel, Christians are free and growing in number. But Christians like Candace would rather lie about the Jewish state and run cover for jihadists. And this notion that people who criticize Israel essentially risk their lives is simply untrue. The internet is flooded with anti-Israel rhetoric. Academia is dominated by professors who are like very, very anti-Israel. And has one been dealt with violently, let alone killed? No, absolutely not. So that is simply untrue. Ironically, there is a group about whom expressing strong criticism means risking your life: Muslims. But she doesn't mention that. She acknowledges that she doesn't talk about Islam, which is strange. She says she deeply cares about mass killing, especially of Christians, again, because she is one. The only group killing large number of Christians today is Muslims. And so I end with this piece from Dennis Prager's letter to Kansas. Publicly, how you, Candace, judge Israel is exactly how the anti-American left judges America. Focus on every bad thing America has done without putting any of it into a moral perspective. America has been an extraordinarily decent nation that has done many indecent things. So too, Israel has been an extraordinarily decent nation that has done some indecent things. If we knew every detail of the history of every country we'd consider decent, I suspect we'd find the same is true for all of them. Thank you for your time and attention. Cheers.